So, hello and welcome. My name is Steve Pugh, and I do something called a Growth Strategy Podcast here on the internet. So, we broadcast live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, and lots of other kind of different channels. And what we love to do is share the stories of some really incredible people that have got fantastic stories to share and to tell. And one of the initiatives that you might have seen I've been doing, I think I've done 5 of these so far, is that I've been supporting as well an initiative called Purple Sock Day, which is to help raise awareness and also money and funds to help support disabled entrepreneurs and their families. And actually, one of the things that I was really keen to do, set up in partnership with Parallel Lifestyles that run Purple Sock Day, is introduce you to some really fantastic people that have incredible kind of stories to tell. And Shani Dhana is no different today. I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that she's done. So she's officially Dr. Shani Dhana, which is really impressive. She was crowned the #1 Disability Power 100 Awards most influential disabled person in the UK. She's been an expert speaker on This Morning. She does hosting and presenting and different consultancy staff, workshops. She's a keynote speaker. I could go on for ages, but instead I will let Shani describe herself. So thank you for your time today, Shani.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
No, likewise. I have followed your progress for quite a long time. And it's one of those things that it's the beauty of, I guess, the internet and LinkedIn and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But also it's the pleasure of doing a podcast where I actually get to speak to people. So I kind of,
Yeah.
so for people that might not know you, almost, how would you describe yourself, just for someone that is going to meet you for the first time?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a very proud Brummy. I have to start with that. And I'm a South Asian woman and I experience disability. I have a very visible condition. And I wear loads of different hats. So I have my own consultancy. I'm also a social entrepreneur and a broadcaster and do loads of other bits as well outside of all of those roles as well.
So I've got to ask, because I'm both super jealous, but I think a lot of people would be interested to know, what was it like to go on This Morning?
Oh, it's great, and not just This Morning, but These Women and Good Morning
Yeah, yeah,
Britain.
yeah.
It's brilliant, and I think for me, I grew up without the representation of disabled people on my screen. I grew up without the representation of South Asian people. So to be a bit of a representation for both of those communities, it's a real honor and privilege to take up that space and hold that space. But yeah, so much fun. It's amazing to meet all the other guests and presenters. It's just like going to have a chat with your mates.
No, I must admit, it's so I don't identify as disabled, but I'm intrigued to almost understand better, what did it feel like, or what do you think the world has now in terms of visibility for different people versus maybe what it didn't have 20 years ago?
Yeah, and I think I should start by saying that recognizing we're still in a cost of living crisis and it's still not easy to live in a world that isn't designed for you, but there's probably never been a better time to be disabled. If you think about it, disabled people really had to fight for rights, fight for the law to make it illegal to discriminate against people as a result of living with a condition or an impairment. And I'm not sitting here trying to pretend it's perfect. It's not. It's a really difficult system to navigate. But it wasn't that long ago disabled people were being institutionalized. But I think for me, so I have a short stature, I have a
Mhm.
very visible condition. It's not something that you will not notice about me. And I've gone throughout life, people having lower expectations of me, people judging my ability based on my appearance, then factoring in disability faces an even further sense of stigma in the South Asian community. But there's this paradox. It's like my condition doesn't disable me. I'm disabled by barriers and bias. But then we, as disabled people, are expected to
Yeah.
remove all the barriers, but we didn't put them there and we didn't create them. So it's just really, it's just yeah, the only way I can describe it is a bit of a paradox because it's so odd. It's so odd. It's such a bizarre way to live.
Mhm.
And it's such a weird expectation that other non-disabled people, I guess, have of us as disabled people.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of my work is still around educating people on this.
But I think it's as I think there will be people, a lot of people are really interested, but almost they want to learn more, and maybe they don't know
Yeah.
how to or where to, and they don't want to say the wrong thing, and it can be
Yeah,
a bit of a I think people are scared, and
definitely. Yeah.
it's one of those things that in the world at the moment there's so much I say turbulence on like all different fronts, that I think there
Yeah.
is actually a fear from what are classed as good people who want to learn more, but they also don't want to offend anyone or say anything wrong. And I think it's really great to
Yeah.
have people who are willing to champion things and educate and inform, because actually it's what the world needs, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, and this is a really common thing that I hear, and we know there's a stat that says 67% of the British public feel uncomfortable when talking to a disabled person, talking about
Wow.
disability. That's a relatively high stat. And I think it just goes to show why it's so important to have disabled people visible
Hmm.
in all areas of life. Yes, when you put your TV on, but also in other walks of
Hmm.
life too, in the workplace. We need to really elevate the status of disabled people, because that's why people have
Hmm.
certain perceptions of us. If they only see us pitted as, either benefit cheats or Paralympians, like we're not just these two extreme
Hmm.
narratives. But also, Steve, like we're all human, nobody's perfect and nobody's an expert. If you asked me to do something that I didn't have any knowledge about, I would make mistakes. So I think it's everyone's responsibility to educate themselves, but I'm not expecting anyone to be perfect. Like, I also make mistakes, and giving each other that grace and doing it compassionately, I also think goes a long way.
I've got you. So you are an entrepreneur in many ways. You're a business lady. You have all of these incredible things going on. Would you be happy to talk about some of them?
Yeah, definitely. So, the thing I guess that pays my bills is my consultancy.
Same.
So, again, I just have to caveat everything I'm saying today by I never planned any of this. It just has all sort of happened organically, or it's happened out of wanting to make change in society. I never dreamt of being on TV, or never dreamt of being an entrepreneur. These are just some things have happened out of necessity. But yeah, again, I found myself setting up my own consultancy just due to the sheer amount of requests I was
Hmm.
getting for the that lived insight, but also for that expertise in really removing barriers for when it comes to disabled people. So I work with loads of different businesses and brands. I've worked with over 300 across the world, really big
Yeah.
everyday brands we would all know, as well as smaller ones and local community and charities as well. And I really love the variety, but I really help brands and businesses to authentically
Hmm.
embrace
Yeah.
disability inclusion and accessibility. Um, and then in addition to that, I'm also a keynote speaker. And then I've also founded several different groups, community groups, initiatives. The first thing I'm going to talk about is Diversability. It's an app, and this is like the bane of my life. It's given me so many grey hairs, but I'm trying to launch an app to help disabled people save money, because on average, it costs us nearly an extra £1,000 a month to live.
Wow.
And when I talk about unavoidable extra costs, I mean things that we just can't not use. You can't just use less of it, or we can't just stop. So, for example, I live in London,
Hmm.
but public transport is not accessible. So I spend a lot of money on taxis. So just as students have a discount, I just thought, well, why don't disabled people have a
Hmm.
discount? Like the 16 million of us, we're starting with a lot less money anyway. So yeah, that's in the works, coming soon. But I also founded the Asian Women Festival and Asian Disability Network. And everything I'm working on, Steve, are just things that I wish existed when
Yep.
I was growing up. So these are grassroots communities, but really far reaching. We've reached over 38 countries with the Asian Women
Wow.
Festival, which is all about helping South Asian women be activists of their own future. And then Asian Disability Network is a support and educational platform. So, as I said, like loads going on, but I really love it. It doesn't really feel like work either, because I can clearly see like the impact that it has, the confidence that we help to build in others, as well as the opportunities that we're able to bring as well.
Because so do you know Dr. Mark Esho?
Yes.
So I spoke to Mark 2 weeks ago, and what was really fascinating is that all of the best entrepreneurs come up with ideas from their own lived experience.
Yeah.
And actually, because what that does, it means that you understand the problem really well. You haven't just, so I know nothing about AI. So I couldn't just start a good AI company because I just don't get that, So, but what that does, that gives you that unique viewpoint, gives you the fuel for your consultancy and for everything you do, because you understand it 1,000 times better than I ever could. And I think that's the beauty of when people do set up their own business. It's if you fundamentally understand something better than other people, I guess that's what people want to pay for. And I think it's the way the world kind of should be. And then likewise as well, it's a very entrepreneurial trait to identify things that don't exist. And you think, well, actually that would really help. And actually the ability to take an idea and actually make it real. And I know how hard it is to build an app as well. That has a lot of massive respect that goes with it as well. And I think the more people talk about their story and their journey and that kind of thing, I think it definitely kind of helps. So relating to that, one of the joint initiatives that we're both kind of supporting is to do with Pebble Sock Day. But one of the questions I was going to ask you is almost why do you feel, or what barriers do you feel that hold disabled entrepreneurs back from launching their businesses or getting more involved in business?
So I think you really hit the nail on the head with what you said there. When you experience challenges and you want to try and solve them, you can really extend that to benefit everybody. And I didn't even realize I was setting up a tech company when I had the idea for the app. When I first had the idea, I thought, oh, I'll physically post out cards to everybody, So we might be really good at understanding what the barriers are, but then there's still a journey to go on. And boy, have I learned so much on my entrepreneurial journey. And the moments where I've learned so much and I've grown in confidence so much is every time I've been outside of my comfort zone. And that could be a whole separate podcast. But also, it's also been not being afraid to fail, because I made a promise for myself I didn't want to live with regrets. And I believe in my app so much. I thought, even if I try to launch it and it fails, at least I can be satisfied with I tried, because I'd be so angry if somebody else had my idea and they did it, and I'd always regret it. And I think failure isn't a bad thing. Like I learned so much from things not going the way I wanted it to, or by being rejected. But I think there's so much untapped talent when it comes to disabled people. We are twice as likely to be unemployed. We have to apply for 60% more jobs. But it's really difficult living in a world that isn't designed for you and managing the day-to-day reality of living with a condition and an impairment. And then it's also really difficult being an entrepreneur. So then that's two really difficult things that you've got to do at the same time. And I have to say, it is just not for the faint-hearted. When I first started out on my journey, there weren't any people that I could really speak to. I just thought, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other and I'll just learn as I go. And that's what I've been doing. And I also felt that entrepreneurship is shrouded in loads of mystery. I didn't realize that everybody else was also making it up as they went along. But as soon as I realized that, I thought, well, I can do that. And then that's what I think gave me more confidence to believe in myself and go after this. So I think, it's fair to say, I'd love to see more disabled entrepreneurs, but it's a really multifaceted barrier issue. It's self-confidence, it's internalized ableism, it's just trying to keep his head above the water yourself as an individual, and then taking it on a business as well. It's not easy. And the last thing I'm going to say about this is, because life costs so much more, because it's so difficult to get investment, even if you look at the support out there, I've never really seen anything targeted to disabled entrepreneurs. I see it based on gender, I see it based on ethnicity, but disability is the largest diversity strand, and I'm really overlooking that. Finally, in the back of my mind, I always knew if it went wrong and I lost all my money, I could go back home and live with my mum and dad. Not that that's something I want to do, but it's an option, and even that is a privilege.
I completely agree. I think it's one of my pet peeves with LinkedIn is that we'll probably follow a lot of the same people. And like, I'm very good at business stuff, but I freely admit there's so much stuff that I don't know. And it's almost that journey that you go on. What I hate is people going on to pretend that they know everything and that there's
Yeah,
some secret sauce. And if you pay me this, I'll teach you. And that just doesn't exist. And I think
yeah,
you are completely right that there is an enigma around that. Oh, well, so and so must be a genius. Or actually, if you kind of put yourself in good situations and you interact with good people and you build a network of people with similar values,
yeah,
opportunities will probably come up like this, where actually, yeah, I like what they're doing. And often the good people kind of do stick together, and you know, you build your
mm,
careers and stuff over time. And then for me,
yeah,
I was always in Cubs and Scouts growing up. That they always tell the kids to just do your best, and if you do your best, it doesn't matter if it fails. And I take that mantra every day, that all of
yeah,
this and everything I've ever done, one day I might stop. But as long as I
yeah,
know that I've tried my best, I'm fine with that. I don't care how it plays out. And I think
definitely.
it's really
Yeah,
kind of important. So
yeah.
out of interest, why do you feel that business education and training and mentoring and the idea, I guess we kind of covered it, but why do you
Mm.
feel that's important?
I think it's important because not everybody comes from that background. Not everybody has parents that run businesses. Yeah, my grandmother had a corner shop, but I don't know anything about business. um, you know, I think as well, you just don't know what you don't know, and that's why I make it a extra effort just to be really authentic and honest about everything because
Yeah.
you know if people, I guess, looked at my LinkedIn or my Instagram, they'd probably see loads of lovely pictures of me at Buckingham Palace or me on this morning, but it's really not all that glamorous. Like the work that you've got to do just to get a little bit of recognition to even be considered for those things, that never gets shown.
Yeah.
So um, I really agree with what you're saying. It's so easy for people to either come across as if they're experts or come across as if everything's so easy and glamorous.
Hmm.
It isn't. And I think it's a responsibility of everyone that has a presence on the internet to be authentic. But again, as a disabled person, I don't really have any confidence in this government. And I think businesses are way more influential than any government or charity can be. So that's why I put my effort into working with businesses and brands because they can innovate so
Hmm.
much more quickly.
Yep.
They've got money that they can use that businesses would just won't allocate in the same that the government won't allocate in the same way. So I think that's why it's really important. I think it's important to also encourage businesses to act for the betterment of society because they literally have the power to influence the way in which communities are perceived
Hmm.
and are treated. And that is huge.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's funny because a lot of businesses do lead government on, you know, it's that I think it does take people that kind of do it off in a sustainable business fashion is the best way to create change rather than just asking for a handout. Because as you say, if the government
Yeah,
changes, all of that can be cut. As
yeah,
actually, if with the app and the network and the things that you're doing, if that can really help make a lasting, sustainable impact, I think
yeah.
that's the way it should be. I've got to ask, have you always been, I say media trained, but very good on camera? Or is it something that you've practiced at?
No, no, I've never had media training. I just obviously um when I first started speaking, I've just practiced loads, practiced by speaking at events for free, really like knowing what it feels like to own your own presence, what works with an audience, I guess what works online. That sort of stuff comes the more you do it.
Hmm.
But if I'm being honest, I'm just me and I haven't got time to be anybody else or try and be different. Like I like who I am and done a lot of work to be okay with that as well. But nothing in terms of media training.
Because I
I
think
just
that's
got a lot
one
to
of the
say.
barriers that a lot of people face, is that they're
Yeah,
scared to put themselves out there
yeah,
because they're worried about criticism or abuse, or
yeah.
just people not liking the way they look or whichever. And I think it's a big barrier to people
It
of all
is. Yeah.
backgrounds almost putting themselves online to kind of raise
Mm.
profile and help promote their business, because it is scary. But because you're so good at this, I just wanted to ask.
Oh, thanks. I guess it's important to remember that like nobody else is going to do it for you. So if you're not going to invest in yourself, then your messages aren't going to get out there.
Hmm.
And I guess something that has perhaps worked in my favor is every time I step out my door, like someone making a comment about my appearance, in not always in a good way. I've experienced things like harassment, hate crimes. I've had 36 years of people judging me on what I
Hmm.
look like, and I just don't care. But I've had a long time to not care, if that makes sense.
No, I've got you. No, I think it's good. It was just something that I wanted to talk about, because the amount of
Thank
people
you.
that I'll say, "Oh, you should do some video. You should," because it's how you can
Yeah.
get. It's part of the reason I love long form content like a podcast,
Mm,
is because you can get a feel for someone's mannerisms and their values, and you use your hand gestures
yeah.
really well. But you learn so much more about a person than you ever can in a TikTok, which is 20 seconds.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
true. Yeah,
so
yeah.
I've got to ask, how did you either first get involved or meet the guys behind Purple Sock Day?
Uh, so I've known Andrew and his team over at Parallel for a number of years, being an ambassador for their in-person event, which is at Windsor Park. And then Andrew's full of amazing ideas, and I think the idea came about because there's a lot of activity around, lots of different disability inclusion awareness days, and a lot of organizations and corporates especially celebrate the International Day of Persons with
Hmm.
Disabilities, which is such a mouthful, which takes place on the 3rd of December. But yeah, these days come around, we all celebrate it, but what impact do we make? And I just loved Andrew's idea about, the socks, which are sustainable, and 50% of the proceeds going towards helping budding entrepreneurs. And as I said earlier, there aren't many,
Hmm.
if at all any, programs out there specifically targeting disabled entrepreneurs, which which does need an individualized approach from like your generic entrepreneur support,
Yeah.
because you have so many other things to contend with as a disabled person. So how could I not get behind it? This is, all the things that I'm really passionate about. And it's so simple. Who doesn't need socks? Most of us wear socks. They're a great gift. And it means we've also got something purple to wear on all these different awareness days.
I'm wearing some now, but you won't be able to see them because they're down there. But I
Yeah,
was the same, and I interviewed Andrew about a month ago now, and I
yeah,
also made the point that compared to the plastic noses, it's a lot more sustainable as well.
exactly.
But
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's a really cool initiative. Likewise, I can see a way that it's sustainable, but it ticks all the right boxes. It's well thought through. It's not just asking for handouts, and I think it's
Yeah.
really cool. I am very conscious of your time, but the one thing that I'd love to know just before we start to kind of wrap up, what's your big dream for the future? Where would you love to be in 5 years' time?
Oh, do you mean me
Yeah,
personally?
yeah.
I would love for my app to be up and running and everybody using it and knowing about it, and disabled people saving money is the ultimate goal there. And I would really love for society to have moved on in terms of how we portray or perceive disabled people. And I would love for our portrayal and our stories to
Hmm.
be more authentically and accurately represented. And I just want to live in a world that is more designed for me and other people that I know, and not still have to be here fighting all these barriers. That would be a great start.
But I must admit, if you think back to 20 years ago, to think that you're now someone really you're literally the most influential person in the UK, but you're one of the people like fighting the fight right at the spearhead, and
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. It's one of those things where even if Purple Sock Day never takes off or it never really lands the way that Andrew hopes, just being the person that's willing to put their heart on the line and talk about these things and just do your best. I think that's mega cool, and it's almost where people will always respect that, you know, regardless of what does or doesn't happen. But I love these. I own probably about 6 different pairs of these, and I think they are very cool, especially good for a Christmas gift as well.
They are, aren't they? Yeah.
So where can people find you on social? How can people follow you?
So it's my name at Shani Dhana on all socials, and my website shanidhana.com.
I'm actually very jealous about the website. I wanted to get stevepugh.com, but there's some guy that draws comics that got it 20 years ago, so I can't have it. But no, I think it's really cool. But no, thank you for your time today. I genuinely, I love watching your progress. I love watching all the stuff that you do. Keep doing everything you're doing. And yeah, thank you for your time today.
Thank you. It's been a lovely chat.
No, you too. All right, speak soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.